Walker Welch, and my lovely partner.
Hi, I'm Clement. Walker Welch today was the runner-up for Fewest Moves.
And my partner Kit here got third. So, congratulations to him. So about the seminar, it's mainly going to go over methods and tips on the Fewest Moves Challenge event. And this will be somewhat interactive, so if you have cubes on you that you can use, we can show you tips directly from the screen. So yeah.
All right, so we're going to talk about first starting out FMC as a beginner and what techniques you should learn right away if you want to get into FMC. Block building is a skill that really is something that kind of just takes practice. We'll talk a bit later about trying first moves on basically every first possible move to see what blocks are made. And also, there is a trainer available online. There will be a slide of links that will be very easy to write down. We have redirect links, so it'll be easy to copy those down. And there'll be a trainer that basically you specify, I want like a 5-move 2x2x2. It gives you a good scramble, and then you have to find the 5-move 2x2. So that is what I used actually a lot to get better at block building. And that's something really that comes with practice. Many of the things you do in FMC use the existing speed solving techniques you know. F2L techniques that you have learned and ways to insert pairs. Many of those kind of similar recognition systems work for block building. So you can often use these things to help you do FMC. Of course, making the next step though is to kind of do this without the framework of a cross. Here, the next thing is spamming finishes. I can admit that my personal best 26 was essentially spamming about 20 different finishes on an F2L -1. That is a F2L without one of the pairs. I literally tried just a bunch of things and somehow found a way to get 3 corners in under, or around 20 moves. I can't remember, but basically it just comes down to how much stuff can you try within 1 hour. And finally, one technique that we want to talk about that you definitely should learn right away. Many consider this to be a more advanced technique, but it really is so easy to learn that even if you're just doing CFOP solves, you should learn it so that you can essentially double your chances. And that's called the NISS, or the Normal-Inverse-Scramble-Switch. Okay, so as you are probably aware, most people are aware that you can solve the inverse scramble on FMC. That is, take the scramble sequence they give you and invert it. And you will use that sequence then and get a solution. Your solution to the normal scramble is then the inverse of that solution. So it's just simply taking the map and flipping it. So rather than finding the solution, you're finding essentially a second scramble and inverting it for it to be the solution. So NISS is taking that concept one step further. And what it does is it uses progress that you'll find on one scramble as pre-moves for the other scramble. So say that you found 5 moves to a 2x2 on the normal scramble. What you can then do is invert those 5 moves that you have, make them pre-moves or moves that you do before the scramble, perform the other scramble, and like magic, the 2x2 will be there. So we're going to go through an example of this so you can actually try this out on your own. So this is an example FMC scramble, and what you'll notice is that doing the 5 moves D2R, B2U, R2 will make a 2x2 on the inverse scramble. So if you've been doing the normal scramble, you've been doing the wrong one. So if you want to try the inverse scramble, you'll notice that those 5 moves make a 2x2x2. Okay, so what you should now try, if you have another cube or if you can solve up that cube, probably best to grab another solved cube. What you can do is, what I wrote in the bottom line is the inverse of those 5 moves. So R2 U prime, B2 R prime D2, that's the inverse of the 5 moves that I used to make a 2x2x2. Now, perform the normal scramble, so the other scramble. We're now switching to the normal. And what you'll notice is if you do this correctly, the 2x2 will still be there. It's magic, right? So now, essentially, you've doubled your options. You can now continue from that 2x2 on the normal scramble or the inverse scramble. So even if you're doing, CFOP or RU or whatever method you use, if you're using that, you can literally just double your options for what you can do next. Yeah, we're good. So you can take the next one.
Now, those are more basic techniques, and we're going to go into a bit more advanced techniques. Pseudoblocks, which are basically, you can use premoves. It's a block that isn't completely solved. And you can just solve it with one move or multiple moves. And you can add those moves as a pre-move in order to solve the block. Next is insertions, and that's basically the backbone of how to be good or to get good times, or not good times, good FMC in Fewest Moves, because basically you can solve as many of the pieces as you can and the fewest amount of moves, and then use those few moves that you have left, few pieces that you have left, in order to solve them with insertions, basically with like a 3-edge com or 3-corner com, and you can usually cancel some moves in there to make it less moves. And the next is basically learning how to manage your time, which is huge. Basically just trying to figure out, with practice, just knowing what continuation is good and what continuation is bad, and you should just get rid of it forever. So yeah. Here's an example of a pseudoblock. So what you can do is you can do the scramble, and then you can do those moves, R2, U2, R prime, U prime. And this is an example of where it's a pseudo block because it's not completely solved, but that one part of the block can be solved in a U2. And so if you do a pre-move of a U2 before doing the scramble, that block will then be solved when you continue after doing the scramble and then doing the moves. Yeah.
So we talked about pre-moves and we talked about NISS. So essentially what this is doing is, if you do a pre-move of U2 before this normal scramble, that's essentially like you did a U2 on the inverse scramble and then used NISS to switch scrambles. So that's another way to think about pre-moves then, in that case.
So that's basics of pseudo blocks. Next, we're going to be going over 8-move corner commutators. And this is basically what you're mainly going to be using. I usually mainly look for insertions that use corner commutators also, but I do use edge commutators. Usually I get corners. And basically it'll follow the format of A and then B and then A prime and B prime. Basically, there are two components where one of the A's or B is an interchange move that can switch with another piece using one move. So example, like a D prime, and one of the pieces will be solved to the other piece. So example, in the following, you have a D between the, or after the RU, R prime, and then after the RU prime, R prime, you have a D prime. Because basically the interchange move is the B part of the format, so the D, and then you have to do the B prime at the end, so that's doing a D prime at the end of the commutator. And then the insert is basically a 3-move trigger, as you can call it. So RU R prime is the central, or the trigger in the following, and then you have to do the inverse of that trigger as the A prime. So RU R prime, D, and then the inverse of the RU R prime is RU prime R prime, and then the inverse of the D, which is D prime. And that's a basic 8-move corner commutator. And you can use those as like B U to B prime, D, and then do the inverse of that. And so you can use D2s as the interchange move, or you can use like FU to F prime as the insert. There's a lot of options there, I guess. So as you can see up there, the RU R prime, so the U in the middle of the trigger is always going to be on the opposite face as the interchange move, so the U is on the opposite face as the D. And then usually when we sticker cubes in FMC, we use a number instead of like looking at the actual color. So we'll actually sticker them and put number 1 on the sticker. And then so we sticker the next 2 pieces, but we put them in order. So this piece goes to this sticker. So this sticker goes to this sticker. So this one has a 1. 1, we usually do 1 goes to 2, so that corner. And then we do 2 goes to 3, which is another corner. And you can do the same thing with edges or other commutators. So now we have an example of an FMC solve. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'll take so. Okay, so this, what this progress means here. So I use the letters I and N to denote which scramble I'm doing work on. So as you can see here, the first 5 moves were done on inverse, and I was able to make a 2x2x2 in 5 moves. Then on normal, I was able to, in 2 more moves, extend it to a 2x2x3. That's very good to be able to do that just 2 moves later. Usually when you start FMC Techniques, you don't just take the first 5 move 2x2 you can get. You take one that will give you good options for extending. And there I noticed that there was a pair right away. So then after that 2x2x3, I switched back, and then the rest was on inverse. So I had another 8 moves to get to F2L minus 1, which is the term that we use for an F2L that's almost complete. It's just missing a pair. After that, the reason the D prime is in parentheses on the last line is because it's continued from the last D prime, so it doesn't count as an additional move as long as I write it as a D2. And then it's another 10 moves to 3 corners. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the pre-move U2L and switch to inverse so you can see this progress. Got it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to perform the scramble and pre-moves really fast. So U2L and then inverse scramble, which I should have put up here. Okay. I rotated it. I need to scooch this over. Can you fix the projector? Yeah. All right, we got this going. All right, so I'm going to perform the 5 move, L prime, U prime, F, L, F2. And this is actually a 2x2x3 now because I performed those 2 moves on the normal and switched over. So this already created the 2x2x3 for me. Now, I'll move it over here so we can see this a bit better. I did an L2, which I'm not sure what the motivation for that was yet. Okay, and then I see, so then B prime, and I want to get, I believe this, nope, it's U. So U, B, U prime, and that creates this pair here. And, oh, and yes, this pair here as well. And it's D, yeah. And then it would be D, L prime, D, and that created this extension here. So now I'm continuing on to the next line. The D prime extends, so I do another D prime. Okay. Then I want to essentially try to move this pair down into this slot. Right? That's D prime. Okay, so D prime, B, D. And then I have this pair here, so I want to kind of join it with this white edge here, because this edge here is white, this one's white. So I do a B prime, L, B, L prime, which creates this block. And now thankfully, we have opposite red, yellow, which normally is not good, but we need to get this orange edge up. And if this were already red and orange as opposites, we'd be in bad news, because we have to get this next edge up in a way that we can finish it. And if we have to replace an edge, that's going to knock away the edge that we want. So we can now take the orange edge, which is supposed to be opposite red, place it next to the white and opposite red, and then when we return, the yellow edge, which was across the wrong edge before, is now across the correct edge. And this now leaves us with just 3 corners. Okay. So now to finish this, of course, you need to make an appropriate insertion. So what we do now is
how we write a skeleton.
Yes. Yeah. So let me the skeleton. All right, so we're going to put the skeleton back up again. So what happens here now is we take all of the normal moves and write them down. Here, the only normal moves we had were L prime, U2. Yep, so those are the first 2 moves in our skeleton. You can move your hand now, Walker, to the skeleton where L prime, U2 is. Point to the skeleton where L prime U2 is. There you go. Okay, so those are our normal moves. Now we do all of our inverse moves on inverse. So you can see the next move is D prime. That comes from the last D in our inverse solution. So we just do D prime, B, D, B2. Next comes L prime, so it's L on the skeleton, B prime, L prime, and so on. So that's how this gets created now, is we essentially take all of our inverse moves and now we flip them back to normal by inverting them to be on normal. So what I'm going to walk you through now is the skeleton and how to recognize insertions. You can see here the optimal insertion happens at that U move. So I'm going to go ahead, I have a pre-stickered cube. Nope. Where is it? Is this it? This is it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do the scramble. And this scramble may not be useful for you to see anything because, of course, you won't have stickers on your puzzle yet to be able to see which pieces need to move. But mine will have the 1, 2, and 3 already placed on it. So let's go ahead and switch to the cam. Okay. So now my cube is scrambled, and as you can see, there are numbered stickers here. So when we look for interchange moves, we can see here that 2 and 3 would create a very nice interchange move because it takes 1 move to solve 2 into 3. So when you go through your skeleton, you're going to go through 1 move at a time, use some sort of cube or object as a bookmark to know where you are in your skeleton too. It's very easy to lose your position when you go back and forth. So we're going to go ahead and apply our skeleton. So we had L prime U2, D prime B, D, B2, L, B prime, L prime B, D prime, B prime, D2, L, D prime. Okay, and then U. So this is where the best insertion lives, except it doesn't look like I did this right.
1 and 2.
Ah, yes, okay. So the interchange move here, you can see it takes an F2 to take 1 and 2 to replace each other. So since 1 goes to 2, since 1 goes to 2, we want to do our interchange move second because doing the interchange move would place the wrong piece in place of 1. 1 needs to go to 2, not 2 go to 1. So instead, we want to do our 3-move insert. And that here is U prime, B prime, U. Because now you can see 3, which was up here, is now in the place of 1. So the 3-move insert then here would be U prime, B, U. F2, U prime, B prime, U. And of course, I'm not holding it in a way that makes it look like U, B prime, U. One thing that many FMCers do to avoid cube rotations, which gets incredibly confusing with these techniques, is just memorizing which colors are for which sides. And it's very easy to remember B for blue, R for red. You typically always scramble white top, green front for WCA, so those two are easy to remember. And then you'll get orange and yellow very quickly. Did I not? Yeah, okay, good. So then I've done my insertion now. I'm going to continue with the rest of my skeleton. B prime, U prime, B, L2, F2, L prime, F prime, U, L. And that solves the cube. So that was, how many moves? 31 moves. And see, what I tried to pick a skeleton and a solution here, I tried to pick one that wasn't terribly convoluted and one that was easy to see where it was coming from, building blocks, pairing them with the right pieces. And while the 2x2x3 was, that's a very above average 2x2x3 to get it in 7 moves. The rest of this skeleton is 18 moves. And most of this was a lot of move spamming. And when you start off doing FMC, it's definitely okay to just spam moves and try things out. And you know, like me here, I just forced 3 corners, which was very lucky. So, okay. So moving on next. Walker will talk about time management.
So time management can do, time management can do, it can be a lot based on how quickly you can do insertions. I've been doing FMC for a couple of years, and so I can do a 3-corner skeleton, which means having a skeleton and looking through each and every move in order to find a commutator that not only cancels, but usually cancels the most. I can usually do that in about 5 minutes. But I mean, a good goal is about 10 minutes after a fair amount of practice. So usually that's like, if you're able to know that you have a 3-corner skeleton and you know that you're gonna go back to it if you can't find anything else, time management can help you so that you know if you see the clock is at 15 minutes left and you still have a 3-corner skeleton left, that you can know that you're going to have enough time in order to complete it. Now different type of skeletons, there's 4 corners, so if you leave 4 corners, you're going to have to do 2 insertions, and same with 5-corner skeletons. And so usually it takes about maybe 20 minutes in order to do those skeletons, to do 2 insertions. So for time management, basically you have to figure out, I have 30 minutes left and I have this 4-corner skeleton. I should start looking at it if I haven't found anything else. So that's basic time management. And like it says, you'll want to aim for about 30 minutes for copying down and going through everything to find a solution. Now we'll have helpful tips, and basically these are some of the best tips that you can use for FMC. The first one is a block trainer, and basically this is what Kit explained earlier, is that if you want 2x2x2 and you want one that is in 5 moves, then basically it'll give you a scramble that for sure you can get a 2x2x2 in 5 moves. And then you can train in order to find that 2x2x2. Insertion Finder is another great tool that I use on every single FMC attempt afterwards. Do not use it during the attempt because that's cheating. But afterwards, you can always plug your the scramble that you had. Yeah. You can always plug in the scramble that you had, and then you can put in the skeleton, and basically it'll say, oh, you have 3 corners left, and then when you submit it, it'll show you the optimal insertions in order to solve those 3 corners, or 4 corners, or 5 corners. Example. Sure. All right, the next really good
guide, I suppose, is Sebastiano Tranto. He goes by Porkinator on the forums. He wrote an incredibly intensive guide on FMC that goes into so many techniques that we've really only touched the surface of here tonight. And this is a really great guide if you're really interested in FMC and want to learn more beyond what we've talked about tonight. And of course, if you ever need this for reference, this presentation, we also have a link given for that if you ever want to revisit the examples that we gave here.
And for final tips, basically, like it says, don't get stuck doing one thing, try many different starts. So, I mean, I am faulty on this all the time, where I just see one thing and I stick to it, and I turn out with a bad solution. So, I mean, just be diverse in all the starts that you can do, and I mean, if one start isn't working out, go to another and find one that's more promising. And then when you start practicing, you could take more than an hour. I mean, obviously if it's not official, but I mean, practice is, I mean, if you need to take more than an hour to find a solution that you're happy with, I mean, that's practice. And practice for FMC, I mean, any practice is good practice. And then last is what kit?
Have fun.
We have fun.
And really, this is a fun event. It's something that you would never really expect to be fun. It's, you know, I just spend a whole hour doing an attempt. This is a lot of time commitment when I could solve a 3x3 in under a minute. You know, it really does end up being a fun event, though, because you really get to see more about the cube. You get to really get into just a particular scramble. And afterwards, probably my favorite part about FMC is chatting with other FMCers about what things they found. It's very common that you'll find a lot of the same things, especially starts, as other FMCers, and then you did completely different things after that start. So, thanks for having us up for the FMC seminar, and hopefully you learned a little something.